The second hypothesis is the induced fit hypothesis. So this hypothesis was proposed by Coastland in 1960. So according to this hypothesis, the active site of the enzyme does not initially exist in a shape that is complementary to the substrate. But in case of lock and key hypothesis, according to lock and key hypothesis, the shape of the enzyme active site is rigid and it is complementary to the substrate, so that only particular substrate can fit into the particular active site of the enzyme. But according to this induced fit hypothesis, the shape of the active site is not fixed or not rigid exactly. It is not exactly complementary to the shape of the substrate. So this concept can be better explained by the use of these gloves. So just look at these gloves. So here the first one is the gloves without hands. So these, even though these have the particular shape, but they are not fixed. So any size of the hand, means any hand with particular size can fit into it. If you see the second picture, so it is taking the particular shape when the hands are inserted into the gloves. Initially they were not in this exact shape and size, so they were little bit of similar to the shape of the hand, but it is not exactly the size that will fit to the hand. So but it is flexible, so whenever you will insert the hands into these gloves, it will take the shape of the hand. So this is the concept which he explained through the induced fit model. So when this substrate will come and attach to the enzyme active site, so initially if you see here, the yellow and these blue things are the substrates and this is the gray one is the enzyme. So when these two will come and attach to it, so they are not exactly complementary in nature with respect to the shape. But when this first substrate is coming and attaching to the enzyme, it is inducing the change. It is inducing the change in the shape of the second active site. So here you can see in the second one. So this first one is inducing the change in shape of the second active site. So this way, even the shape of the substrate and the active site is not similar or not complementary. When this substrate will come and attach to it, so this enzyme will adopt the shape which is complementary to the substrate. So in the same way, like whatever we discussed in the lock and key mechanism, here also when these substrates will attach to the enzyme, they will form a complex, that is what we call enzyme substrate complex. And then the reaction will takes place, and then they will, whatever the product that has been formed because of this reaction, that will leave the enzyme active site, and again this enzyme active site will attach to the another substrate, and again it will catalyze that substrate reactions, and then that will convert the reactants into products. So in that way, here also the enzyme is not being consumed or not being modified. So when during the reaction in the initial stage, whatever the shape and size it was having, so at the end of the reaction also it is coming back to the same size and shape. So binding of the first substrate induces the conformation shift that helps binding of the second substrate with far lower energy, because in the initial state, whenever the first substrate attaches to the substrate enzyme active site, so there is a large difference in the shape of the enzyme active site and the substrate. But when it comes to the second one, already this first substrate induced the change of the shape of the enzyme. So with less amount of energy only, this substrate can attach to the enzyme. So that is the advantage of this model. And when catalysis is complete, so the product will be released, and this enzyme active site will be made available for the next substrate. So this is the induced fit model. So in case of lock and key hypothesis, according to lock and key hypothesis, the shape of the active site is rigid and fixed. And in case of this induced fit model, so this hypothesis says that the active site of the enzyme is not rigid, that is flexible. Whenever the substrate will come and attach to the particular active site, so then this active site will adopt the shape which is suitable for the substrate, which is complementary to the substrate. So these are the two methods or two hypotheses which will explain the enzyme mechanism.